Hey guys, welcome to another episode of 911 Mythbusters. So, this episode, we're going to take on the ambulance service. And if you call 911, do you really have to take the ambulance? Like, if you need medical help and the ambulance comes, do you have to be transported? So, this one is going to be, I'm going to call it plausible, on the edge of busted, because you always have the right to refuse medical care, but you need to understand what all goes into that. So, being as I've worked on an ambulance beforehand, before I started dispatching, I have a little bit of experience in this as far as the dispatch side and the side of the medics and EMTs actually going to your house. So, when you call 911 for a medical issue, of course, it'll be a medical dispatch center that'll take the call for you and dispatch out the ambulance. And they'll update the ambulance with details as they're on the way. And what happens when the ambulance gets there? Well, when the ambulance gets there, they're going off of whatever you told them. For instance, let's call this an everyday call that you would always get on the ambulance. Seemed like it was almost every shift. Still does. Even dispatching seems like we get this call every day. Someone has fallen and needs help getting up. There's a lot of things that goes into that, and it shows that not all calls are the same, right? Because even yes, 5 different people could fall, but they're gonna fall 5 different ways, they're gonna be injured 5 different ways, and they're gonna need help in 5 different ways. So, when you arrive on scene, of course, you're gonna do your assessment and everything with the patient, you're gonna help them up if it's safe to do so, and once you do that, that's where this transport, not transport comes in. You always have the right to refuse transport or medical care. Now, more than likely, what's going to happen when you do that is the paramedics on scene are going to explain to you, and this is covered in their liabilities and things they have to do. Even if you stub your toe, the paramedic is going to explain to you all of the possible complications if you are not transported up to and including death. That just covers them from any liability. They know that they've explained everything fully to you and all of the different possibilities for you to make your decision on if you want to be transported or not. I know that sounds ridiculous, but like I said, it when you get into medical and healthcare things, there's a lot of things you can be sued for or be held liable for, or even just get in trouble for your policy. So most paramedics are going to explain to you all of the complications with that. I said even with a stubbed toe that they're going to explain all the complications up to and including death. Well, how can you die from a stubbed toe? Here's and when we were going through paramedic school, this is kinda how it was explained as an over the top, ridiculous, example to really sink into people that this is why you explain these things. So, we all know that, in particular, diabetics have extra complications when it comes to wounds and healing, right? So, say you stub your toe. It's impacted your toenail, and that impacted toenail is going to cause an infection. And when it causes that infection, it's going to be harder for you to heal, first of all, because you're diabetic. It could turn into a sore, which then creates a bigger infection. You could go into septic shock and die from that. That's one example. Or you could stub your toe, gets impacted, creates an infection. The infection creates a blood clot. The blood clot could cause some major issues. And that's how easy it is to describe every possible issue leading up to death. Now, like I said, that is an extreme example, and that's more than likely not going to be a thing that happens. But that's one thing you try and explain to your patients. If you have a fall, a lot of times um, there may be other injuries involved with it, tears, sprains, broken bones, things that you probably want to go ahead and get an x ray for, especially depending on the fall. If you fall from a ladder, of course, we are going to try everything we can to convince you to go to the hospital and get an x-ray to make sure nothing's broken, right? I understand healthcare is expensive, insurance sucks. It does for the paramedics too, but they also want to take care of you and make sure that nothing's broken. So you don't have to be transported. There is a form in most ambulance services you can sign stating that they've explained everything to you. You're still making the decision that you do not want to go to the hospital or be seen at another facility. Just understand your risks behind that. Like I said, any good paramedic will explain everything to you. So when you're involving falls, course, we're going to try and get you to get that x-ray to make sure there's no bones broken because that can cause complications. And everybody's different. You're going to have a person that pulled their pinky a little bit and is screaming and crying, and it's the worst pain they've ever felt in their life. And then you're going to get the old grizzled dude that has worked on a farm for 50 years after he got out of one of the world wars and legit feels no pain at anything that's happening to him. He could have an open femur fracture and doesn't bother him in the slightest and really doesn't want to go to the hospital. So everybody's different. But just because you call 911 and ask for an ambulance does not mean you have to take that ambulance. They will come out, they will check you, they will give you their read on it. They can't give you an official diagnosis. They can't treat you right there for anything and everything, but they can tell you in their experience what they've seen, what it looks like to them, and highly suggest you go to the hospital, whether you want to take the ambulance or not. I am going to say this is also plausible due to the fact that there are private ambulance companies that may have sketchy practices in wanting you to go to the hospital, but at the same time, it is your right to refuse medical care or transport. But understand what you're doing when you do that. You are releasing them of any liability that they had as far as treating you or transporting you. And when you release that liability, there's not much you can do. A lot of times, you won't get billed if it's an ambulance service from a municipality. Um, Private ambulances, I'm not sure if they bill for call outs that don't result in transport. Not sure on that. Um, but if money is a factor, I mean, I most municipalities aren't going to bill you for it. But private ambulance companies, I don't know. I never worked for a private ambulance company, so I don't know if they bill for call outs that don't result in transports. This one's gone a little long, so we're going to call that one plausible, simply because they're going to explain to you each and everything up to and including death that will result from you not being transported. But that doesn't mean that you have to be. We're going to call that one plausible. I hope you enjoyed it. I rambled on a little bit on this one. Not sure why. I'm in a little bit of a different headspace today. But if you enjoyed it, please sure to like and subscribe. Tune in for the next one. And until the next one, be sure if you have to call 911 to dial up those details.